Welcome back to the Palouse Playbook. Coach Moore mentions it was a solid day one of practice. Let's talk about it.
If you're interested in being great, you better look hard into Washington State. You want to be great? Go to Washington State, baby.
Welcome back. We are in the house with Kyle Knowles and myself, Gavin Hite, talking Cougs. Speaking of Cougs, Coach Moore came out before practice got kicked off yesterday, and had mentioned some pretty cool stuff. We'll get into that in just a second. But today he mentions it was a pretty good practice, and especially talking about the quarterbacks. Good efficiency, good operation, no pre-snap penalties. Gotta love that. Great day one from the QBs as we're getting into a search for who our starting quarterback is, or at least an announcement, which leads us into our next topic, or our first topic, I should say. Coach Moore mentions there will be a quarterback announced on or by August 24th. I would imagine that it's going to be on August 24th. He's probably going to make it a big thing. Huge step in the right direction from where we were at last year. But Nosey, I'm going to kick it over to you. What are your thoughts on the quarterback situation, or just we're going to get an announcement and actually have something definitive before 1 minute before the game?
Well, as you mentioned it offline, we found out last year, 15 minutes before kickoff, and I don't think anyone outside of the locker room knew it was going to be Potter over Eckhouse. We saw how it ended. The season ended, but again, was a complete shocker. The fact that we've got a date, to me, tells me that they've got an inkling. They're just kind of waiting. They're looking for they're just looking for it to be solidified. And we can speculate all we want. Again, based on what happened with going into the summer, coming into fall. No one blew anybody out of the water. I think it was all pretty status quo. Again, Caden's kind of the guy that came in. He's got the experience. He's got the numbers, while the others have, Owen has not played, and Julian has gotten a little bit of time in his time at Pitt and here. So right now, there's nothing that would tell me that someone has went above Caden, just based on numbers. If you're walking in today saying, okay, I need a guy who's played 10 plus games, he's a near 70% completion thrower, he can run, he can pass, he's played playoff football. Caden's got that pedigree. Doesn't mean the other two can't come up. Maybe, in the last few weeks, something clicked in the weight room, or something clicked, maybe watching film, that they come through and it's like, you know what? This guy is just blowing the doors down. This is the person we need to, carry us at the beginning of the year. I don't know that. I'm not living there. I'm not hearing reports on that. So again, I'm just taking it from what I could have read and video and all those things. And right now I would say it's Caden's to lose. We'll just say that. I think it's Caden's to lose.
And on top of that, I think you have three competent quarterbacks. I like all three quarterbacks. They all bring a great flavor to Washington State football. And yeah, it sounds like there really is going to be, we're going to run it down to the wire on seeing who the starting quarterback is. If not, from a media perspective, I think Kirby Moore is doing the right thing. He's given everybody their fair shot at winning the starting quarterback job. Whether you think it's Julian Dugger, whether you think it's Owen Eshelman, whether you think it's Caden Pinnick, they're all getting their fair shot. And as a brand new head coach, I think he's handling this
exactly.
correct way.
It's one less thing he has to worry about. You know what? I'm giving you a date. You'll know by then. Jimmy Rogers was playing all hush hush, and that I just don't think that bodes well. I think this is, if you can give media answers, usually they kind of leave it alone. Okay, he's giving us a date. Great. We'll hear then. We can kind of move on and focus on other parts of this Coug team, which honestly needs some flowers, because if you hear just the reports, they deserve it. It doesn't have to be all about the quarterbacks. I know it's a vital position, but there are other parts of this team that we need to be successful, to be a team that wants to potentially compete for a playoff spot. And I'm looking forward to seeing more media coverage on other positions other than this quarterback race.
I agree. I think that was very well handled by Kirby Moore and company, just to say, hey, like we're still these guys are still battling, and we're finally getting back in the fall, and we're seeing who worked. We're seeing who worked in the summer, I guess, is kind of what it comes down to, and who comes back prepared, who's if they had a playbook that they're really diving into, who studied the playbook the best, who is executing the best. And that's one of the things that he mentioned, is he wants to see execution. And that's what these next couple of weeks are about, is taking everything that you learned in a very short amount of time. Like, we've been here for 8 months. Everybody on board has been here for 8 months, learning playbooks, learning chemistry, learning routes, all that good stuff. And now we're putting it all to the test for the next couple of weeks to find out who our starting quarterback is. Handled very well. And to your point, I also agree. I think now that you have been definitive, hey, we're gonna get you an answer. It's gonna be on August 24th. We might even get it. There's a chance that maybe they announce it sooner rather than that, but it sounds like August 24th, you're going to get your answer. So now you can start focusing on some of this, some of the other areas of this team, and make your own mental notes if you're there at practice, or if you get to see any of the practice. So very well handled. I very much like that we can all just breathe a little bit and focus on other areas. That's a great job as a brand new head coach to kind of take the stress off of, hey, who's going to be the quarterback? Who's going to be the quarterback? Not that we would pressure that situation. It'll happen. Like we did it. We had to deal with it last year, and there was no pressure from us to find out. We were just like, okay, like it's game day, and we still don't know. A little weird in my opinion, but I mean, here we are. And when I got to meet with Kirby Voorhees, if you haven't checked out the interview, make sure to scroll back on some of our videos. You'll see that Kirby Voorhees interview. He talked about how good this defense was, and there are so many names. This defensive line is going to be huge. We also talked with Kaden Beatty. He talked about that defensive line. But I did want to take a slight break and talk about injury updates, because there's a couple things to note going into this fall camp. Per Greg Woods, thank you so much for all that you do for the Cougs with just getting us information, all that good stuff. If you're not following Greg Woods, he's a great follow. Tight end Trey Lechner will be out until potentially mid-season. He re-aggravated a previous injury in a non-contact incident. Wide receiver Ryan McKendry, offensive lineman Kalolo Ta'aga, out for the beginning part of fall camp. And then offensive lineman Jalen Caldwell is healthy and ready to go. He was noted as missing, I believe, most, if not all of spring. If I think it was most, or if not all. And then Tony Freeman, a good chunk of the spring was missing. He showed up, and I wanted to get your thoughts on Tony Freeman. He is our highest rate. EA Sports thinks very highly of him, and I think they're going to find out halfway through the season that they've underrated, I think, a lot of our players. Not to say that Tony Freeman isn't deserving of that by any means, but there are so many good players on this team that you're going to see him throughout the season. I think EA is going to have to update every week as the season goes on. But Tony Freeman was noted saying he noticed the tempo of the practice, and he noticed the tempo of the offense. It's very fast paced. Wanted to kick it over to you on your thoughts on Freeman, this up-tempo offense. What are you kind of making of that?
For the up-tempo, I think that's a result of guys getting it shows that what they did in this little break between spring and fall camp, that they put their head in the book and they learned the offense. Because the way you have tempo is everyone is clicking. It is a nice fluid machine. And I think, again, we talked about this back in spring ball. The offense is definitely the harder of the two sides. I think defense, you can have a little bit more chaos, because chaos is kind of good on defense. But I think not, and that's, again, no slight on any defensive schemes, but I think there's less pieces that have to go right perfectly for it to all work well. On the offense, if your offensive alignments aren't good, if the receiver doesn't run, the right route to the right depth, the QB doesn't make the right read, everything falls apart very, very quickly. And so I think when you're seeing fast tempo, that means that there's guys that you've got 11 guys on the field that understand what's going on. They're confident in what's going on. And there's some synergy between just, again, the offensive line. Hey, I know this guy. I trust this guy. He's got my back. If we make a call, the running back's going to step up, if it's a pass block situation. And as a quarterback going, I know when I put my foot in the ground, I throw the ball, my receiver's going to be there, and trusting the eyes. So I think it's just a really good, to me, that sounds like people put their head in the playbook. They got together, and we're starting to see that kind of synergy and just cohesiveness that, we would have loved to have seen in spring, but it just really probably wasn't realistic, especially in this new era of college football where you're bringing in a ton of new guys, then add in a brand new offense. So love it. And then you get to Freeman. I mean, you saw what he did last year. The guy was a Swiss Army knife. I mean, he did it all for us. And having that guy healthy, getting some, reps with the QBs, getting a feel for, space on the field, just kind of getting back into it, which is phenomenal. And, I'm very sad about the Lechner deal. And then obviously with, I think it's Taaga. I will say this, the places that we've seen injuries are places where we have depth. And the tight end group, again, very deep. You've got Hudson Cedarland, Jack Peterson, the transfer from UCLA. We got Bo Baker, Cash Landau. We've got some really good guys. And they have, and the coaches talked about those two guys kind of in spring camp. Cash had I believe it was, Bo Baker had the one catch last year against UW for the touchdown. Cash did not play last year. So you've got some guys that are big and physical with experience. We're in a good place. And I think in our offensive line, last year, I think that was potentially it wasn't a weak point in terms of talent. It was a weak point in terms of depth. This year, you brought everybody back, plus added with some transfers. You even got a UW transfer come in as well. It's a good place to be. And even the wide receivers, McKendry, I can't wait for him to get healthy and get on the field, because if you look at what he did last year, guy's a special talent. But to me, that's the difference between this team and probably teams of last year, is just the depth. But particularly where we've seen some key injuries, we have good experience and depth. That just makes this, I think this team's just a little different, and it's in a good way. And so especially just being well-rounded. So I'm excited, I'm about the injuries, but excited about what we have that's able to kind of come behind it.
Yeah. The depth part is absolutely noticeable. And then I also wanted to kind of double tap on the up tempo. I really love that at the beginning, part of it. Hey, did you study the playbook? Did you do your job over the summer to be prepared for day one? Working in an up-tempo offense, and that may be just the style of offense that they run. If they run that the entire game, if they go no huddle the entire time, perfect. Hey, whatever you got to do, if that's the style of offense that works best, awesome. However, Bobby Knight was donned doing stuff like this, where getting guys to work as fast as possible, and just trying to get even faster and faster, and then dialing it back from there, and then being able to go at any tempo that they need to go when it comes to game time, or when the lights turn on, how are you going to perform? And if you practice at a very high rate or very fast pace, it makes it easier to dial it back. It's going to be difficult. You're going to have drop catches. You're going to have some other things that are tossed in there that maybe you weren't prepared for, but you're going to learn from those mistakes. You're going to learn to work at a very fast tempo. So I really like that they had the up tempo day one. And if that's the style of offense that we see for the entirety of this year, awesome. But now that you've established a fast tempo offense, you can dial it back from there, or it's easier to adjust down the road. So I'm excited to see how that tempo plays into the season, especially, week 1, September 6th, taking on UW, 1:00 Pacific Coast time. I'm excited to see what that'll look like. However, we got to give out some awards, and this is per Wazoo football Twitter. Got to talk about it. Day one standouts. From the offensive side, you have wide receiver Tony Freeman. From the defensive side, you have linebacker Jack Ellison. Special teams linebacker Gavin Fugate. And from a lineman perspective, I would imagine this was both offensive and defensive if they're just leaving it as linemen. Offensive lineman Ashton Tripp. Pretty cool. I like seeing stuff like this. This is just a little different than we've operated in the past. And I like seeing more into the program. And I don't mean to say like we need to know what's going on in between and what these conversations are about. No, but they're giving us a good insight into what they're doing. They're giving more media. They're doing stuff like this. Coach Moore has not been shy about being definitive, being careful with his words, but also being direct and saying this is what's going to happen. I really love the new direction of this club. It just seems like Jimmy was very reserved, and not to say that you can't be a reserve coach and find success and build a championship around that. However, it's nice to have insight. It makes my job easier, but also as a fan, this is what it's about.
I think it also helps alleviate, the media speculation, because if, also I think when, I think Moore's confident in who he is as a coach. I think he's like, I know my Kool-Aid's good. I know it works. I've seen it at every stop I've made, and I'm not going to shy away from that. And by talking about these things, again, he's not going to completely open up, hey, here's everything we're doing. Here's all my notes. But I think he's acting confident. He's acting like this team, he's confident that he's saying this team is good. I don't need to shy away from any questions or hide anything away. We're good. I'll tell you what you need to know. You can see it here on the field. But I think that helps, at least because the media is always going to be there. And, if you sit there and like you mentioned, being reserved, now you're going to start speculating on a bunch of things. Now you've got things just kind of out in the Twitter sphere and all the other places. And sometimes that's just not, they always say, good, any PRs, bad PRs, even good PR. No, I don't see it that way. I think we want positive vibes only. I'm going to take that from the Mariners with this team, because there is such a forward momentum of just awesome things happening in Pullman with this team. So I love the way he's acting with just the media. And honestly, I think that, that makes this media team that's out there, I think that makes them want to write a little bit better about us. I know the spokesman review at times can be a little, at least in the past, they've been very direct about what the coach has done or choices. Mm-hmm. To me, what he's doing, you go, he's being fair, he's being direct, and he's being forthright to a degree. You can't just spill the beans on everything. What more could you ask from the media perspective? So I think he is doing a phenomenal job. And I'd love to know, hey, were you getting advice from your dad, being a longtime head coach? I know at the high school level, but they're dealing with their own things too, but just a very polished coach, not very even in a full year yet.
He is very professional, and we haven't even seen one game of him as a head coach. But I can see the confidence. I can see where it derives from. Coach Tom Moore, legendary Coach Tom Moore, Prosser High School. Both of us are class of 09, along with Coach Kirby Moore as well. And we've heard our entire high school careers and beyond how good Prosser was and the Moore family, and how much the Moore family means to the state of Washington when it comes to football. So I for one, am just excited about what Kirby Moore is going to do. And should the expectations be super high year one, my expectation is, hey man, build that culture, because he's doing it right now. And you're starting to see it, especially with these interviews that we're pulling out. If you haven't seen any of them, check them out. You'll see exactly what's going on behind the scenes from these players. He's gotten buy-in. He's gotten players that played for Jimmy prior to Wazoo that ended up staying at Wazoo. Why did they do that? Why did they choose the Palouse? And this is not an anti-Jimmy thing. That's not what this is about. This is a pro Coug. This is all positive towards Coug culture. It's just what we have done to win these young men over to want to stay on the Palouse again. So getting to that, I wanted to get into kind of our last little segment here. We have a brand new head coach. We have a brand new coaching staff. We have half a roster, if not more than that, that is new, all trying to find the Coug way, all trying to find their own way within the Coug culture, I should say. What are your expectations for this fall camp from, I guess, either from the head coaching perspective of having a new head coach or from these players? What are some of your expectations that you'd like to see over the next couple of weeks before we take on UW?
I think from the defensive side of the ball, kind of continuing the momentum we heard and kind of saw from spring ball. The offense, as we heard today, I think to me that is like your baseline. You don't go beneath that. Up tempo, no pre-snap penalties, keep taking care of the football. That is the baseline, and you don't go beneath it, and you continue to progress. And there's really nothing more I can say on that, at least from this team leading up to game one, is simply continue to progress from where, you kind of either met your baseline, which I think the offense hit that today, or from your defense, where I think you ended spring ball last game for spring ball. Just continue to, get past or continue to grow beyond the baseline.
Yeah. For me, I guess expectations as well. I love watching the Seahawks. From Pete Carroll to Coach McDonald, they have done just a fantastic job. And from these getting to know you type of practices, I mean, if you watch Hard Knocks, you're already starting to see there's fights, and that this is the time where fights happen. And I'm not saying there needs to be fights, but there needs to be some chippiness. We play with a chip on our shoulder here at Wazoo. That's just the Coug way. And again, I'm not just saying that because I didn't play at Wazoo. I'm saying that because this is just we're the little brother. We're always
a collision sport. It's a collision sport.
It's a collision sport, but also all these players that we're talking to in all these interviews are mentioning the same thing. It's very, you get that chip on your shoulder, not only just being at this level, but also when you play for the Cougs, man, like you put a chip on your shoulder, and as Nyland Brown put it, it's a huge gash. You put a gash on your shoulder, and you're ready to rock and roll against anybody. And that's just that is 100% the Coug way. But the expectations that I'd like to see are just, building that camaraderie, building that brotherhood that they've done such a great job of, and continuing to collide in a positive way. If there's fights, being able to pick your brothers back up and be able to move forward with it. If there's no fights, hey, that's fine. But being able to find one another and have that communication at the highest level, having that chemistry at the highest level, taking off with that very first game, which we all know and love, the Apple Cup. The one thing I did want to also say, it's not quite an expectation, but a player to just circle for me, Jeremiah Bernard. I really liked what he did during the spring. I think he had a handful of interceptions during the inter squads, all that good stuff. He was all over the map. I saw a couple plays, and man, this guy looks like he's not being talked about enough, in my opinion. This is a guy I'm circling, saying, watch out for this guy. There are other guys. I'm not trying to, minimize Jack Bell or anybody else in the D-backs. Our D-back core is going to be way better than people want to give us credit for. But I wanted to, just single out and isolate Jeremiah Bernard for a second, because I don't think he gets enough love. But Nolsey, I wanted to kick it back over to you for one last little part there. Anybody that you want to circle, just saying, hey, watch this guy.
There's a lot of them, right?
I know you're a big Ryan McKendry guy once he gets healthy.
Yeah, I want once he gets healthy, but I think a guy we need to look at is Porter. He is the prime example of a guy that got an opportunity due to injury and took it, and went absolutely off the rails. This is a deep wide receiver room, but again, one thing you can't replace is reps. Like, you get those reps, and I think he's got himself in a position. I think he still might come out the gate as maybe, wide receiver 4, wide receiver 3, but you're going to see him in the mix. And I think he's just a guy, maybe you see him on special teams, but I see he will make plays for the Cougs somewhere. I don't know where, but you're going to see his name on a stat sheet in a really positive way, helping this team succeed. It just seems like the kind of makeup that guy's got. Really excited to see what he does.
And for the Palouse Playbook, that's Kyle. I'm Gavin. Thank you so much for joining. Day one in the books. Day one and day one. I say that O-N-E and I say that W-O-N. So excited to cover this team. So excited to talk Coug football. Check us out. Check the interviews out. You're going to love these guys. I promise you that. But for Up West Sports, I'm Gavin Height. That's Kyle Knowles. And just remember, life's too short. Gas up your boys.